Dane, welcome, mate. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to my house.
Thank you, mate. No, thank you very much. I know how fucking busy you are, but I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Yes.
Yeah.
I appreciate you flying down, man. I mean, I didn't realize till we spoke. It's already been 10 years since we last kind of caught up with each other.
Yeah, time flies, mate.
Yeah,
but
definitely,
you've done so much in that, that time frame, mate.
Yep.
I read this quote from Alex Hormozy. I love Alex Hormozy. I'll read it out to you. He said, "Confidence without evidence is delusion. You don't become confident by shouting affirmations in the mirror, but by having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. Give yourself so much goddamn proof that the version of yourself is what you want to be, and you'll become that. Outwork your self-doubt." In your whole journey up until this point, how did you navigate the balance between self-belief, the necessity of building undeniable proof through action, especially in the early stages of your entrepreneurial journey when it wasn't visible, you didn't see success right away?
Yeah, look, to be honest, I think a lot of it has just come from always having that. I mean, I'm a big believer that you need to have passion, right? And I love that quote from Alex. I think it's so true because I get a lot of time like, oh, you're so comfortable talking in front of people or doing that. But it's like, I've done tens of thousands of hours of it, and, not over just 1 or 2 years, but over decades. So, I've kind of, to his point, you ingrain it into your subconscious in many respects. But I think, like, for me, I've always had a passion for what I do. And so a lot of entrepreneurs will say, oh, you want to focus more maybe just on the profits, because if you're not profitable, then what's the point in having passion? But I disagree with that. Like, 17 years in for me for Clean Health, and we've got a bunch of different businesses now. Like, I wouldn't work as much as I work and do as much as I do and keep doing it now for 23 years in the game if I didn't wake up every day with a fucking boner for it, right? Because I'm genuinely passionate about doing what I'm doing. So I think for me, it's passion is a short answer.
Yeah. And your journey, mate, is fucking inspiring. It really is.
Appreciate that, man.
And can you start by telling everyone just about your childhood and, in particular, growing up, we're in a family full of bodybuilders, fitness enthusiasts, martial arts.
I call our family academic athletes.
Yes. Yeah.
Academic athletes.
Yeah. But, what has shaped you, throughout this whole journey in your childhood? How did you get to where you are today?
To be honest, I would say initially it's because I had a massive chip on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Because it was a big, fuck you to my dad, really, if I'm honest. Like, that was a big thing because, coming from our family and especially around our granddad and stuff like that and our aunties and uncles and, everyone was, you've got PhDs and master's degrees, but then you've also got national level athletes. So, there was a large part of our family that was highly academic, so a lot of IQ, but then also very physical, so they had a lot of presence. When they walked in a room, you would know and feel that they were there. So, for me, I think initially it was, large part of it was to do my family proud and kind of having that, seeking, I was seeking, I guess, acceptance, and acceptance for me, my dad and I have had a very 3-6 year relationship. Back when I was growing up, it was like, I often say I was brought up to be Captain America. He would say no one remembers second. If you don't come first, what is that? He would say stuff like that to me at, 6, 7, 8 years old. And, at the time, I was just trying to seek my father's approval per se. But then I think as I came into early adulthood and especially as a teenager, I'd kind of wasted my talents the last few years of high school. And I kind of, then did a very short stint in the army. And it was literally within a few days of being in there, I realized fuck, I'd really been wasting my time. I'd gone in through the Army Reserves. They'd wanted to keep me there full time, but I knew within a full days that I wanted to get into fitness. So this was back in 2001.
Yeah.
And then, over the next kind of 6 to 12 months, I did all of my study and all that type of stuff and just got into personal training. And even back then, because in 2002, the fitness industry wasn't what it is now. The industry of personal training, it wasn't an industry. It was like boxercise in a park. It was $30 an hour. And even then, as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, you know, my dad and people would be like, well, it's great that you're passionate about it, but there's no money in it.
Yeah.
Right. Which comes back to how a lot of people are programmed. We get so many people that come to us now as students, for example, that are in career 1 or 2 because they went in because their family, their environment told them that your worth is measured off financial success. Like all this that you see now, I honestly, I could lose it tomorrow. I'd still be fucking happy because I know A, I could rebuild it again, but 2, like my paradigm for success now waking up is like, how does my little one look at me in the eyes? How do I feel? You know, like, do I actually feel happy with what I'm doing? So it's like initially a big part of it was like to prove my family wrong. And I'm grateful for that. You know, I look at that now and like, I'm so grateful to my father for the work ethic that he instilled in me, the discipline that he instilled into me through the martial arts and all that type of stuff. You know, like you, I started martial arts early. I started from 4, went to, you know, 11 or 12. He closed the dojo down like literally just before I was going to get my first dan at like 12 or whatever it was. And I look at that time being very grateful because that gave me the foundation, like that old, you know, like that old school British upbringing that kind of we've all been exposed to in our family in one way, shape or form. So initially it was because I had a chip on my shoulder, and that probably drove me up until, you know, like, fuck, to be honest with you, 5 years ago.
Yeah. You mentioned a while ago, if I remember correctly, success leaves clues.
Well, that was a quote I got, and I always give acknowledgement where acknowledgement is due. That's what I got from Charles.
Yeah.
That quote is a Charles quote, but it's so true.
100%.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about Charles a little bit later on because I'd love to talk to you about that, mate. But our grandfather, he was an Olympic weightlifter. He was a Commonwealth Games gold medalist. He fucking definitely had an influence on me. And, you know, he got me into the gym. Did he have an influence on you?
100%. I remember in the 80s being at his house in Brizzy.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, because I'm a bit older than you. Like, what are you now?
38.
Yeah, so I'm 42, turning 43. So I remember at that time in the house in Brizzy, he had a garage gym. Definitely wasn't as spiffy as my one now. He'd love that one now. But it had a barbell, it had a dip thing, it had a chin-up thing, and I would watch him train at literally 5, 6 years old. And I would watch my dad train at home. You know, he'd be training multiple times a week. So I think, like, I often say, like, it's no wonder I'm in this fucking industry, right? Because I've been around it literally, you know, we both have from birth. You know, so I remember he would do, you know, he gave me Arnie's encyclopedia.
Yeah, it was a thick book, wasn't it?
First to read. He did some of my programming for me. You know, when I was in my teens, when he came down to Sydney during the Olympics in 2000, like we would train every other day. You know, when I was 17 in our home gym garage and stuff like that. So he definitely, like, you know, he was a complicated dude, but he you know, he left a lasting legacy, and you know, I'm grateful for him because I think him and my father, you see, I've got it there in my gym. I'd say there's 3 people that in their own way probably help, you know, responsible for why, you know, we're the 4th largest health and fitness education provider in the world now. And we're the biggest non-private equity invested, like it's just myself and my wife, Lauren, as owners. That it's him, my dad, and Polquin.
Yes. Yeah.
For their own different ways, they're the 3 people that influence me the most.
Yeah. No, it's amazing, mate. And, you know, what you've achieved, mate, and I mean, we talk about a decade, it's fucking incredible. You know, and from a working class family to building a multi-million-dollar business, what was the pivotal moment that made you realize you could achieve more than what was initially possible?
Look, it goes all the way back to childhood. I remember, like, you know, and we didn't own our house growing up. You know, like my parents only bought our house in 1999 when I was in year 11, right? So, we grew up in the inner western suburb of Sydney. And I remember, you know, there was one friend in my public school who was the rich kid, and I would go, and I developed a friendship with him. He was a nerd. I was a nerd, but I played sports. But his dad was the architect on Centre Point Tower, sorry, in the city. And so he lived in a place called Canada Bay, in this big house. His dad had a Lamborghini Countach, and it was like this. It was literally like this. It was on the water, and I used to go there and be like, wow. And I remember that, my dad would come pick me up and my mum would come pick me up, and I could, looking back now, I could feel their insecurity. Like feeling as though like, oh, they're not providing value for me or something like that, and feeling kind of, and I think a lot of parents, like you want to provide the best for your kids. So I think remembering what I sensed from them, how they felt, and then also seeing that, I was always from a very young age, I'm like, I'm going to fucking have that. I remember being 7, 8 years old, like I know I'm going to have a fucking, a Bentley. I did like a Lambo. Like I knew that somehow I would have that in my life. I felt at home in that environment. And so, even though I would go home and, we wouldn't have that, I would look at that environment and say, yeah, that feels comfortable to me. I will have that someday. I don't know how.
Yeah. Yeah. The price of progress, mates, is pain. And like anything in life, there is an equal or greater cost. Were there any sacrifices that you made that were painful to get to where you are today?
I mean, marriages, divorces, far out, bankruptcies, all types of shit. Like I've had so many things over the years happen. I think like, I look at it like this though, all those things were meant to happen to me at that point in time. At the point in time, like when you're in that pain, like it feels shit, and so now whenever I'm kind of going through any type of troubling environment, like meditation's really helped me, and just looking at things slightly different. Like I try and step back from the situation and look at it rather than be in it, if that makes sense. So even if sometimes you just need to go outside, put your feet on the ground, go and breathe for 5 minutes, try and center yourself. Like, even the last 12 months, like, we've gone and acquired 3 different competitors in our space. Like we've stretched ourselves, like emotionally, physically, financially, everything to in essence consolidate a market. But I've learned to, whereas 5-10 years ago, if I was in that stressful type of environment, I would lash out and react. Now I can kind of sit and understand it's just part of the process.
Yeah.
You've got to go through shit to feel good.
100%.
It's almost like a rite of passage. Like it's but again, it's hard when you're in it. And that's why I think like having tools, like having, whether it's breathing, meditation, journaling, we're just making sure you have the right partner.
Yeah.
For me, and not to offend anyone, but like, to me, like the first marriage is a warm up, the second one's the real deal. Right. What? The most important decision you'll make is your life partner.
100%.
Ultimately, if I was to look at the choices that I've made over the course of my life, but in particular, I'll just use our example of the last kind of 10 years since we've been with each other. When we last saw one another, my initial marriage was coming to an end. And then since that, I've met another woman. We've, married. We've had 3 kids together. We've now got 7 kids between us. I know. Still 7 kids. Like 10 years ago, I had no kids. I literally in 2013, I had no kids.
Yeah.
Right. Now I got fucking 7. Bizarre. But it's your life partner, I think, because I think, my wife and I, Lauren, like, and you can, if you guys can see me on @Daine McDonald, but you see there in the bio, she's at Lauren McDonald 8. She is the yin to my yang, and vice versa. We counterbalance each other. We're aligned from a value standpoint. We're both quite conservative traditionalists, if you would say, but with a modern day twist.
Yes,
if that makes sense. Like, because I think sometimes conservatism kind of gets looked at as like kind of quite prude and not like, but that's definitely not us. But we're old school with a new school twist, because at the end of the day, we also run all of our businesses together too. You know?
Yeah. And speaking of Lauren too, mate, it's interesting. You're 100% right that the most important decision you'll ever make is your partner. And I came across this quote. It says, having a woman who is 100% down for you whilst you're trying to build yourself is something money can't buy. Me personally, mate, and I'm sure a lot of men would agree, that if you have a woman that's with you from the ground up, that helps you through thick and thin, through all the shit to get to where you are today. But, you know, how else has Lauren helped you on your journey through the ups and downs, mate?
She's helped me personally. So I think I've helped her professionally in business. You know, like we literally just announced to her today and, you know, literally on our end of year team meeting that she's coming back in as CEO, right? To manage our Clean Health group. And so, like, when I first met her 10 years ago, there's no way she had the skills to do that job. So, like, she's definitely grown professionally from our relationship and personally.
Yeah.
I've grown personally on a personal level because I think, you know, when we got together, I'd spent the better part of my whole adult life just working, right? And, you know, as you would know, we come from a family background, bit old school British, like, you know, emotions, don't show them. You bottle everything on the inside. You're only, you know, the number one mark or paradigm for success is if you're fucking got money, as it is with a lot of people. And so, you know, whereas, and especially when you kind of grow up in a working class environment, you think that if you are a millionaire or have all that all of your problems will be solved. Newsflash, just because you're a millionaire doesn't mean all your problems are solved. I would arguably say that the bigger my business has gone and the more money that I've attracted in my life, the more balls I need to juggle. Because I think with the business and commercial growth and financial growth, obviously also comes responsibility. Responsibility to your team that have supported you to get to that point, responsibility to the people that you're serving, responsibility to the people that in the community, right? Whatever you're doing. So it's like, a lot of people look at it the wrong way, but I think, you know, whereas from her standpoint, you know, she'd gone through a lot of, like, you know, she was on the streets at 12. She was addicted to heroin. She was, you know, raped, shot at, everything that could happen to a human being without dying pretty much has happened to my wife. And she's very open about it, right? So by the time she was 16, you know, she'd already been addicted to heroin for 3 years, right? By the time she was 17, she got off that. So when she was 21 and having her first marriage and having her first child and just in essence being a stay-at-home mum, she'd gone through so much personal trauma. Whereas me at that age, I was just fucking working 70, 80, 100 hours a week, emotions, fuck that. Like, you know, meditation, sissy fucking shit. Like, I was just literally work, be number one, be number one, be number one, be number one, fuck you, dad, be number one, fuck you, dad. You know what I mean? Like, that was my driver. You know, but you might look at it now and say it was the wrong driver. It was the right driver for me at that point.
Yeah.
All right. And so that was my whole 20s was literally just doing that. When I met her, you know, it come from a place of like, she was the opposite of anyone that I traditionally would have gone for. I used to have characteristics and requirements that I would have, like I was such a wanker. With any of the women that I would be with, they must be this, they must be that, they must be that. Whereas with her, it was the first time in my life that we made eye contact, and I was like, oh my God, you could feel like the penny dropped. And, you know, we got into this relationship and, you know, this whole, I guess, spiritual side and, you know, the wisdom that she had from being a mum and going through everything that she went through really started to crack open this, you know, my heart.
Yeah.
And, you know, like over that period of time, I had a massive nervous breakdown, dark night of the soul, blah, blah, blah. But she really cracked me open on a personal level. And like, she's the type, like, she wouldn't give a shit about all this. She just walk tomorrow and say, fuck you, I don't care. And I think, you know, to your point, it's like having that ride or die. Like I've been blessed to have that with her. And like, yeah, I couldn't imagine life without her.
No, it's amazing, mate. I look at you and Lauren as a power couple. You and Lauren very much remind me of Alex Hormozi and Leah Hormozi. And I think Leah Hormozi said she would sleep with Alex under a bridge. If they lost it all today, she would sleep under a bridge.
Yeah.
Like a woman that's with you from the ground up, mate, no fucking way would you let somebody like that go. And I think that's what every man wants.
Yeah.
They want to ride or die.
Yeah.
Most people
You know what I think stops a lot of dudes from getting that though too is like Lauren and I, like I had an affair on Lauren, you know, within a year of being together. I tried to sabotage shit with my EA at the time, you know, and I was like, oh, far out. Like I'm a stepdad now to 3 boys. This is all too much. I'm not seeing my daughter. I try to sabotage that. I think the problem with a lot of dudes is that we pick up these inherent programs from our fathers in this generation, which a lot of them are boomers, and they pick them up from the greatest generation, right? Yeah. That all kind of were in the war. So the reality is those who are in war experience the worst type of psychological trauma that any man or any human could, you know, like experience. Yeah. And so, you know, their way of expressing love was through alcohol, it was through beating, it was through like nothing.
Yeah.
It was through nothing. You know, I remember my dad telling me a story from our granddad that when my dad was 14, he broke his arm at school. Right. And this gives you an example. He broke his arm at school. He came home and the first thing that our granddad said to him was like, oh, well, you're not going to be able to lock out in the snatch now and go to the Olympics. Right. So it was all about how will you make me look good and feel good about myself, not how do you feel? And so a lot of it was inward. Then I think with the boomers, you know, they kind of came up in that generation where they were getting that type of love. I think our generation, like millennials really are the first generation I feel to actually start feeling.
Yes.
Right. And to actually like, you know, express themselves and stuff like that. Like you can still be a alpha dude. And like, to me, a man, like what is a man? You're a savage fucking servant. I think Bedros Keuilian sums that really well. You're a savage fucking servant, right? I'm a savage when I need to be in business, in the bedroom, whatever it might be. But I'm also of service. I'm of service to humanity. Like, and I said it to the team before, I'm like, you know, everyone in our company, I'm like, you know, go home, go to bed tonight knowing that you are leaving humanity and this planet in a net positive.
Yeah.
Right. So, which I think a lot of the time comes back to passion. So I think like, you know, yeah, like far out from a, you know, choosing your right partner and stuff like that. And we get that a lot, actually. Like a lot of people are like, oh, you guys remind us of Alex and Layla. I'm like, yeah, but we've got 7 kids. So I think we one up them or 7 up them.
Yeah. Yeah. Most people, mate, overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 3 to 5 years. And I generally believe that you can reinvent yourself
100%.
In 5 years. And that's definitely happened in my life. And it all comes down to daily habits. And you said to me once to take massive action. And that always fucking stuck with me because I think it's the habits that we adopt day in, day out. The reason why I have discipline, like 80% of the time, mate, I never feel like fucking working out, but I always do. Grueling leg session, get in there, get it done. But it's the aftermath. It's how I feel after I've done a grueling leg session. But I'm interested to know, mate, because of what you've accomplished, of course, there's going to be some habits that you adopt.
Yeah.
But what are some of the habits that you've implemented over the years, continually doing day in, day out?
I think it's like the seasons of life, right? Like, so the habits that you have when like pre-kids, right? Or even when you're single are very like, there's the habits you have when you're single, there's the habits you have when you're in a couple, and then there's the habits you have as a family man or family woman, right? Because they differ. You know, for example, now, like if Lauren and I want to go work out together, we have to organize a housekeeper or something like that to go do that. So it changes the habits. But I think like what works for me, right? So what works for me, Daine, at this point in time, I'm a husband, I'm a father of 7. You know, I have over 100 team members in my different companies spanning Australia and North America, right? So I juggle a lot.
Yeah.
So what works for me? My routine is pretty simple. I'll wake up anywhere between 4:15 to 5:30 a.m. every day. Now, I don't set an alarm. I don't do alarms. Like, I'm sure, like, hands up if when you set an alarm, you wake up at 3 because you know that you got to wake up to your fucking alarm.
Yeah.
So I don't do alarms. I just find that gives me sleep anxiety, right? So I'll just wake up when my body needs it. And, like, if I go to bed between 9 and 10 o'clock at night, I'll generally wake up between 4 to 4:45. Some mornings I might just lie back down for 15 minutes, like this morning. Woke up at 4:10, and my daughter had come into the bed overnight, Maya, and I was awake. She's like, "Love you, Daddy," And so I stayed there for 15 minutes just hugging her. Actually ended up in fucking tears because I was just like, this is just like, just savoring it. Like, she's 4 years old. It was just like fucking, immersed in gratitude. And then from there, I went out. For me, I meditate. I love meditating. And meditating for me, it's not just about the breath. It's actually feeling into my energy. It's feeling into my intention. So I start every day from a place of like reminding myself to smell the roses, because that can be a really hard thing, I think, when you're a high achiever or trying to build. And I think in particular, especially as men, like irrespective of what generation you've come up in, like there's that inherent kind of thing to provide, to be better, to lead, to be of service, to do all that. So for me, it's like, start the day, feeling grounded and humbled in whatever it is that I'm doing. I'll spend anywhere. Lately, I've actually been doing like a 45-minute meditation. Just really kind of visualizing kind of the next moves. I find this time of year for me, coming into the next year, it's like, you spoke before about like people underestimate what they can accomplish in 5 years, 10 years. People fucking underestimate what they can accomplish in 1 year.
Yeah, true.
I said it to the team before, and I'll give context. 12 months and 2 weeks ago, it was from a clean health side of things, it was just clean health. 12 months and 2 weeks later, I'm now Clean Health Group, and we've acquired 3 companies in that period of time. Those companies between them had 130 staff and team members, so they weren't small businesses, right? If you'd told me a year ago that I would have gone fucking literally done that, I would have been, I probably would have thought like, yeah, I could do that. But, it still wouldn't have been kind of a thing. So I start my day literally visualizing, focusing on what it is I want to achieve. I will then alternate, like probably 4 or 5 times a week. I'll go jump in an ice bath. I like that as a jolt.
Yeah.
I will now then take that. I've meditated. I've done my jolt. I'll sit on the couch, and then I'll basically do anywhere from an hour to 2 hours of like, I would call like intense, creative and strategic work that drives customers, revenue and impact for our business. Yeah. So by that time, it's like 7:15-ish. The kids are up and around. I'll try and spend 15, 20 minutes with the ones that are going to school before then, although now that we've taken them out of the woke-ass school system, don't have to worry about that anymore. From there, like my routine lately is I'll either go and do a quick weight session, or I've actually started last week running.
It's interesting.
Running,
yeah.
So like my first run, I did 7 minutes, and I was like, oh fuck, right? I built up today. I did 23 minutes. So it was my fifth one, and I'm just building myself up. I haven't eaten today, so it's like lunchtime now, so I'm fasting. So yeah. I think the first 2 hours a day, it's about like grounding, intentions, family, and like highest value work that moves us strategically towards our mission. Do something for my mental body, do something for my physical body, do something for my emotional body with my children and my wife. And then literally it's pretty much go in some way, shape or form till about 3 p.m, at which point I generally do a hard stop and I'm fucking done.
Yes.
So for me, like, and especially for those that are listening that are like manic motherfuckers or fuckerettes, right? That are just all in on things. You have to, like for me, you have to set a hard time that you switch off.
Yeah. You know what it is too, mate? Like, I don't appreciate wind down time unless I work for it.
Yeah.
If I've earned a day off, mate, I enjoy the shit out of it. Like, I'll fucking put my feet up, make myself a nice drink. I think going through discomfort and putting yourself in that mindset that reframes your state of mind just gives you so much more gratification. And you mentioned mindset, mate, and mindset for me is huge, especially, because I'm heavily into martial arts. But talk to me about that, mate. Talk to me about mindset, on how that played a role in your life, in particular going through the hard times.
Probably 2 things to that. I think or a few angles coming from that. I think the first one is like, you're talking about like definitely earning the time off. Like I work every day, 7 days a week. Yeah. I've had 1 day off in months, right? Like, I'm literally doing something in my business and work every single day. I don't have weekends. So what I mean by that is I do and I don't. I will still move the needle in my business, even if it's between 4 and 6 a.m. before the kids get up on a Sunday. I will still do that every day.
Yeah.
I did, I think last weekend or the weekend before, I took Sunday off, right? And so a lot of people are like, well, that's not balanced. I'm like, yeah, but I think like if you're trying to achieve big things in life, like there's no such thing as balance. That's the first thing. But I think that also comes back from a mindset perspective. Like for me, you kind of touched on it earlier about like habits and kind of time under the bar. You were using the Hormozy quite like, you almost like, you know, have so much evidence that you know, your confidence just comes from a place of certainty because you've done so many reps.
Yeah.
Right. So I think for me, mindset is like, if I'm not like overly competent in something, right? So it could be even just the way I am as a fucking husband. It could be the way I am as a parent. It could be the way I'm in marketing or whatever it is. I'll look at it from two things. One, is it the best use of my time to learn that skill? Right? If it is, then I'll go all the fuck in on it. But if it's not, then I'll adopt the principle of like, who can help me do this, not how can I do it?
Yes.
Right? So that's when I think the part of delegation comes in. So I think for me, mindset is something that's continuously evolving. It's continuously moving, because even like one thing I realized just coming off that meeting today, where it's like an end of annual year catch up with the team, the value that I provide in that business now at the size and scale it's at, it's literally from a pure leadership role, right? It's not about me getting micro in there in the weeds and doing stuff. It's about empowering people to fucking move the business forward under my strategic vision. You know, and even that's been a mindset shift as an entrepreneur that's so used as a founder. I'm so used to like, I've cleaned the toilets, I've done the customer calls, I've done the sales, I've done the marketing funnels, I've done the social accounts, I've done the paid ads, I've done the graphics. I've literally done every role in my business. So I think mindset is something that is like, you know, malleable. It's shifting and moving, and I think evolving, and you know, it's something that I think as long as you got that kind of growth, kind of a mindset, you know, moving forward, it's always going to work in your favor.
Yeah. We learn, mate. We learn far more of what goes wrong in our lives than what goes right. And I'm grateful, obviously, for experiencing hardship and overcoming adversity, because it makes us who we are today, mate. But what has overcoming adversity and resiliency taught you, mate, the lessons that you've learned from that?
I wish I'd gotten like resilience and adversity earlier in my life. Well, actually, let me reframe that. I'm catching myself. I don't wish. I'm grateful that it's played out the way that it's occurred. But I will say that if I use my wife and I as an example, she got a lot of resilience early on in her life when she was a teenager, right? Me, I didn't really achieve or receive any level of resilience like on a big hit perspective until I was probably in 2013, 2014, when my first marriage broke down 10 years ago. Because everything in my life I'd won up until that point. I'd won in business. I'd won in, you know, like by the age of, 28 or 29, I was the highest paid trainer in Australia. You know, by 2012, I'd opened, done all this stuff. So like I'd always just won. But then my marriage broke down. That then trickled into my business. I lost millions in the business. I had to liquidate one of my companies. And so those first few hits, like in my early 30s of like losing, really hit me emotionally. You know, and then I went into this kind of self-sabotage cascade for the next kind of like having affairs, like trying to just sabotage and implode my life. And kind of, so I would have, in retrospect, it would have been nice to have had some trigger points earlier in life. So I think when you get them in your early 30s, you're so used and hardwired a certain way that it could be a real big slap to the ego. But I think from there, like, you know, I would say the biggest learning curve for me was in 2019 when I went through a massive nervous breakdown. I was suicidal. I was, wanting to neck myself every other day. I ended up having to spend months away from my family in like a executive burnout retreat. And that was really kind of challenging and confronting at the time. But like having gone through that now, and I think for anyone listening that's going through, you know, really hard times in business, in your relationship or whatnot, like, fuck, like I'm proof positive that you can come out the other side, even if you receive them later in life. If anything, going through all of that shit the last 10 years, like I approach every day from a place of certainty and confidence because I know that I can handle anything.
Yeah. Men are fucking lonely, mate. I don't think people seem to understand this. You know, above 70% of suicides are men. And you know, this obviously is a big fucking problem. And you know, I think also I read another stat: men are 3 times more likely to kill themselves compared to women. You mentioned yourself, mate, that you've had 2 nervous breakdowns, and I've had a period in my life where I have felt that way too. But what would be some advice that you could give highly ambitious men who are striving for success but may feel overwhelmed by the pressure and loneliness that comes towards with achieving a specific goal or unlocking their true potential?
You just got to remove ego. And so like ego can be a great thing. Like, you know, my 20s and early 30s in particular, ego is what drove me. But the reality is every single person on this planet pretty much has someone in their life that loves them. Right. So I think like, if you're a dude that's kind of going through something like that, just remember that whether it's your mum, your fucking cousin or what, there's someone out there that really gives a fuck. And if you were to do that, you would destroy their lives too. And so my thing is to speak up. And I think it's like, it is more socially acceptable. So like a lot of the time that's getting out of your own way and just saying like, fuck, I need help. But that's also reactive in that you've gotten to that point where it is. I don't miss a day of meditation. I don't miss a day of doing my routine. I don't miss any of that. Like I know there are certain people out there like Hormozy, he talks about, you know, I love the guy. One thing I fucking don't agree with him on at all is his whole thing of like having no routine.
Yeah.
Like, mate, that's like labeling something like, you know, if you're a father, you're a parent, you've got kids, you got screaming stuff, you've got fucking debt, you got a mortgage and this and that, like, and you need some time, go fucking take some time to power up your day, 100%.
Yeah.
Just doing the work is not always going to be the solution, right? So for me, like, it is non-negotiable that I have 5-10 minutes per day, whatever it is, to put some time into me. You spoke about being lonely. That's the second thing. So like first thing is speak to someone. Second thing is just have your habits and your routines to get ahead of it. Because I think like we get so caught up in like, you know, I kind of look at the human side. There's kind of four key areas we look at. We've got the physical body. We've got the mental body. We've got the mental body. We've got the emotional body. And then we've got the spiritual body. So like the physical body is this, right? You know, the mental body is the analytical mind, the one that overanalyzes things, the monkey mind, the chatter. So that's the thing that's like, okay, cool, profit and loss, fucking yay, nay, if I do this, I'll get this, right? The emotional body is how you actually feel in regards to those decisions that you've made. And then the fourth one is, and I call it the spiritual body because the spiritual body is that one of fucking passion and impact. So like if all 4 of those bodies, if you will, aren't in congruency, if you're eating shit, if you're not training, right, and your physical body's out, your mind, you know, your clarity, your focus, you know, is going to be out. Your emotions, how you feel to your thoughts are going to be out. And then finally, you know, you're going to be sitting there every day where I was when I was 38, 39, waking up every day thinking like, well, 37, like, fuck, is this what I'm meant to do?
Yeah.
Asking yourself those questions. So I think if you're a dude right now and you're listening and you're asking yourself, like, is this it in life? Is this what I'm meant to do? A lot of the time that is your higher self or your soul coming in to actually say, hey, you're not on the right path right now. You need to step back and actually kind of look at what's going on. Are you following your passion? Are you doing right by yourself? Right. So it's like, yeah, I hopefully that gives some insight in regards to how I approach these things.
Yeah. I think if I remember correctly, you did a bit of work with Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
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 What were some of the things and mindset tools and strategies that he taught you?
With him, it was more understanding around kind of frequencies, right? And like, we all know someone, right, that when they walk in a room, you can feel them, right? They're, you know, and you can feel them. You can feel some people like that uplift you, that you're like, right? You know, there's those people that you see them and you just, oh, fuck, I want to give you a hug, right? But then there's also those people that they come in, you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's a frequency. That's an energy. That is a, you know, a signal that is emitting from that person out, that is radiating an emotion, right? A vibration, if you will. So he really unpacked the difference between frequencies that bring you more of what you want or what you want. So frequencies that bring you more of what you want, and then frequencies that bring you more of what you don't want.
Yes.
Now, if I use those two people as an example, the person that comes in, they're warm, they're fuzzy, you want to hug them, what is the feeling of that? It's one of love. It's one of abundance. It's one of happiness. It's one of joy. It's one of laughter. It's one of, these are all vibrations or frequencies that oscillate at a very fast pace that actually attract more of that in your life. The other person that comes in, it's fear, it's cold, it's scared. These are frequencies that have slow waveforms that bring more of that trap to your life. So that's more lack, that's more scarcity, that's more disease.
Yes.
So really, like, since I started to understand all of that from Joe and apply it to my life has radically transformed. And it's a big part of why I power up every day. Like, you know, if you ever watch like Dragon Ball Z and shit like that back in the day, it's like fucking Goku in the time chamber. I fucking go in the time chamber, I fucking home, doing my fucking meditation, doing my chant. Like, I do that shit, you know. Do I look like a fucking hippie? No, but I love that. It's what gets me going every day. And then at the end of every day, I'll bring myself down, calm myself down and get my sleep. So I think Joe really Joe took me out from being like, you know, a skeptic, a kind of believing that all there is in this world is hard flesh, 3D, to understanding that there's more to this life and this reality than that.
Yeah.
And that if you're open to being, you know, if you're open to it, there's a lot more in this life that you can actually achieve.
Do you believe in the law of attraction?
I believe in the law of frequency.
Yes.
Right? So, you know, the law of attraction is like, because frequency is attraction, it probably should be the law of frequency. Yeah. I believe in that what you put out, you know, you will receive back. Now, the energy that you put out is ultimately based off a few things. One, it's like, you know, you've in essence got beliefs, thoughts, and then reactions, right? So your beliefs in life will obviously influence the type of people that you attract, how you talk, how you communicate, how you congregate. This will obviously influence the type of thought process that you have. So if you come from an environment, so for example, where we did, where the overarching theme was, if you don't have money, you're worthless, right? Your thought patterns will reflect that.
Yeah.
Right? You'll look at something like that. You'll look at a thing or whatnot and say, okay, I need that. I need that to be successful, happy. As soon as you need something is the moment when you won't receive it.
Yes.
Because you don't actually need anything in life to be happy. You don't need anything in life to be happy, right? It's more about what are you open to receiving. So I think for me, it's more about the law of frequency. Like, what you put back, you'll get back. You know, but then also with it, it's like, because we have, 50, 60, whatever thousand thoughts a day, is putting some time aside to actually catch your thoughts.
Yes.
It's you heard me before. I kind of reframed what I said. I wish that. No, I don't wish that, because my word is an energy. It's a frequency that's saying, like, if I need that, if I wish that, I'm coming from a place of friction. I'm coming from a place of lack, not from a place of abundance where I'm trying to receive it.
Yeah. Can money buy happiness?
Money buys freedom of choice. Money buys freedom of choice. So anyone that says, "Oh, no, money doesn't buy happiness," I like, there's truth in the statement, but money brings freedom of choice. For example, money is enabling my wife and I to get on the plane on the 1st of January and fly to Singapore, then spend 13 months traveling around the world with our 7 kids, 2 housekeepers, and a videographer, right? like fucking wild, right? I never even thought 2 years, 3 years ago I'd be doing something like that. So money definitely brings freedom of choice. But I think to attract more money, there's a few kind of process that you need to go through in life. You need to find a problem that you're solving out there that's, and for me, I think if the problem that you're solving has a net positive on humanity aspect, it's going to make you feel better, your frequency, you're going to feel content, you're going to feel grateful about it. So that energy is going to radiate out more into what you're doing. So it's like a problem that you're solving, with that problem that you're solving, do you have the skills required to solve that problem?
Yes.
Right. So it's like, if the problem I'm solving is like, I don't know, it could be, let's just talk about the obesity problem, right? In fitness, right? Okay, how do you solve that? Well, I can be a coach, right? So to be a coach, I need to get a qualification. But will a qualification as a coach, is that enough? Probably not. I probably need to do continuous learning, continue reinvestment and stuff like that, and stack my skills to get to a level where, I'm now the GOAT, I'm now the SME, I'm now the person that has this brand and this following that attracts more people to me so that I can actually help them. So I think like that's a big part of, people, want to receive more money, but understanding that there's a passion component, a skill component, but then also the final part is the time component.
Yeah.
Right? Because like sometimes it doesn't, like it can happen quite quick. Don't get me wrong. And I've had periods where shit's happened quite quick. But I think overarching is go into every kind of business venture or life venture with an attitude of like, if it works out, great. If it doesn't, it's all good.
Yeah.
Because I don't need it to work out. I'm going to be fine anyway. I heard a quote from Elon Musk the other day. He was getting interviewed, and he literally said, and you could see it in the way he said it. They said something about he was talking about SpaceX and Tesla and how multiple times they were verging on the brink of bankruptcy.
Yes.
And he's like, and if they did, I don't give a shit. I'll just do it again. And I'm like, and I just, like, you could see, I'm like, fuck, that's why you're the GOAT, right?
Yeah.
Like, because you could see that is generally how he felt. He had that absolute certainty, and his frequency was one of like pure abundance.
Yeah. You mentioned once that clean health wouldn't be what it is today if you hadn't have crossed paths with Charles Poliquin. And I reflect on mentorship throughout my life, and I know he was a massive mentor to you. But how did his influence shape the path of success in your business and in your life?
I think with Charles, he was the first one that triggered for me that you could really professionalize the sector of kind of personal training and whatnot. And so kind of seeing that, he was a strength coach that had, become a multimillionaire. So he had the best of both worlds, right? Yeah. He was able to do something that he was passionate about every day, but he got paid like a big time CEO. And so I think he was a physical embodiment of what could be achieved. And then I think what he did really well was he simplified the skill of personal training, whatever it was, and made it quite systematic. So I think step 1, step 2, step 3. And to me, that is the sign of a true subject matter expert, someone that doesn't need to overcomplicate the process, right? And that goes for any industry. Like if you're a CFO, if you're a fucking lawyer, if you're whatever it is, you shouldn't have to pontificate 5,000 paragraphs as to why someone should do something. You should be able to just go bang, 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 because you know that topic inside and out, and through, because you've learned it, but then you've also experienced it. And I think that was the other part with Charles. It was applied knowledge.
Yes.
And so like I look at Clean Health and any of our businesses that we have now, which, are all pretty much in education or the SaaS software that we're doing at the moment. It's all about like, here's the science or the information. Cool. Now, how do we apply that? How do we apply that to get someone better at that career? How do we apply that so that they can actually get fucking paid in that career, right? Because that's another thing I say. It's like, if you're doing something that you're passionate about that is of a net positive to humanity, you should have no issue asking for fucking money. right?
Yeah.
Because it's better off people that are actually positively impacting, the planet receiving more money, because ultimately money is a tool for choice.
Yes.
And choice a lot of time, it gives you the ability to influence things and, make more of a positive contribution. So I think, that would be my response to that.
Yeah. He said once in an interview, I listened to him, he said, following your passion is bullshit. You need to get good at a skill, and then your passion comes out of that. And that always stuck with me, mate. And like anything that we do, acquiring knowledge or investing in yourself, these are important things that I think people can try and, hone in on. But what are some of the skills that you learned throughout your entrepreneurial journey, in particular in business and life and even, parenting?
Yeah, I think like whether it's in fitness or even like accounting, whatever teacher, like any career path could start as a security guard. I think a lot of career paths start from a place of like, you are the practitioner.
Yes.
Right? Like I am the instructor, I am the accountant. And obviously that journey is related to you becoming a subject matter expert in that particular field, right? And so that's what I spent probably the first, from 2002 to 2015 doing. I just spent the first 13 years becoming as good as I could be at that particular craft. And then obviously because I created such a gap between how quickly I could get a result for someone in my field compared to my competitors,
yes,
I grew such a much larger business. So the original Clean Health with gyms and stuff like that, I wasn't a fucking good businessman then. I wasn't. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was good at getting people results. I was good at marketing those results, and I was good at selling those results. When it came to operations, when it came to finance, when it came to management, when it came to technology, when it came to intricate details, I wasn't good at that. It was only when I went through, and as my business, and that you can be good as an entrepreneur from like $100,000 to $1 million just through being good at fucking, like, be an expert, be good at expressing that through marketing, and then be good at selling it. And generally, if you're an expert, it's very easy to sell your shit, right? And that'll take you to $1 million, even maybe $1.5 to $2 million quite comfortably. But once you start going to 2 to 3 to 3 to 4, and the point where we are now, where we're doing tens of millions of dollars per year, those skills aren't enough, right? So you either need to level up those skills or level up your skills, or bring people in to do that. So, to give you an example, I can now sit on with our CFO, I can sit on with our accountants, and I'm fucking on it just as much as them. I'm the one pulling up shit because I know my business better than they fucking do.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. Back then, I was like, oh, you're an accountant. Oh, I'll listen to you. Now, no, you're there. I pay you for advice, but I've done that many hours under the bar with Excel documents, with P&Ls, with fucking, SOPs, with all this type of stuff that, I now am, maybe it's not my profession per se, but I can hold my own in any part of the business now. And a large part of it, to be honest, it's time.
Yes.
It's time. I've had this recently with one of our new SLT members, and he was a C-suite executive in $100 million plus business, and he's kind of coming. He's like, fuck. He's like, you're like an expert in fucking every area. He's like, I'm an expert in one or two, and it's like, how can I ever kind of match that? And I'm like, bro, been doing this for 23 years. Like I didn't come out of the womb of business like a fucking, my role now as chairman. I have a board. I have people that report into me. I have CEOs in my companies. I didn't start like that.
Yeah.
It's all come through time under the bar. So I think I think that the main thing is, I think, the focus that you apply to your initial career of getting good, I chose to apply that to becoming good at business.
Yes.
And so from 2015, 2016, when I nearly lost everything, I made that choice. I'm like, you know what? I can't be the subject matter expert and the CEO. I have to be one. I can't do both. And that's probably another lesson for entrepreneurs is when you get to $2, $3, $4 million, unless you bring a GM in, an operator in, or something like that, you are going to have to evolve the fuck up to be the person that takes to 8 figures and beyond.
What's harder, your first 100,000 or your first million?
It's a fucking good question. I'd say, to be honest, the first 100,000.
Yeah.
And for me, because I think the first million comes just from the confidence and repetition of the first 100,000.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's like, I think once you get to 100 and once you get to say 200, 250 in particular, depending on the market that you're in, because some markets just won't have the growth potential too. So that can be a limitation. Like we talk about having passion for whatever you do, finding the problem that you want to solve, acquiring the skills to solve that problem. But the one part I didn't mention was, does that market vertical actually have enough revenue opportunity in it, right? So for example, right now in our market vertical, we're looking at expanding out into like Pilates and yoga, because if we do that, I've got the opportunity to capture a piece of $1 billion, $1.5 billion a year in revenue that's in our marketplace right now in certifications. In fitness, it's about $500 million, but if we expand into Pilates, all of a sudden, Clean Health Group has an opportunity, even if we take fucking 5% of that, all of a sudden we're doing, 9 figures plus of revenue like that.
Yes.
Right? So I think the market vertical is really important too. But if I was to go back in time to when I started, I'd probably be a bit more strategic with that. It's like maybe write down the top 3 things that you're passionate about, like what wakes you up with wood every morning, right? To use the crude term. And then once you've identified that, what skills you would need to solve that problem, actually have a look at the market vertical. Does that market vertical have the opportunity for you to do $1 million? But then you also need to ask yourself, is like, what do you need? Sorry, what do you want? Not what do you need, what do you want? Because I think, for example, what my wife and I built, it's not for everyone. It's not everyone's idea of success. For me, I'm a very purpose-driven person. I have big intentions in this life that I want to leave on the planet. For us, there is no other way or option to achieve those intentions unless we just keep fucking growing.
Yeah. What's your take, mate, on the current state of the fitness industry?
Make coaching great again. All right. That's the make PT great again. So that's actually our theme for 2025. I actually just said to my marketing team, we're getting some hats made up for it too. So you'll be able to go to cleanhealth.edu.au to get some. Going to get some of the red ones too, and black. Look, I think the industry is overall in a good place, but I do feel it's coming to a bit of an influx point where you've had this massive online pivot the last few years, where you've had the online entrepreneur really kind of come into fitness. But because you can make a quick buck in fitness these days, online in particular, there's been a drop off in the average level of skills for coaches, right? Because some aren't even doing their initial accreditation, but very few are actually doing continuing education.
Yes.
Right? So like the industry we came up in, that's what it was about. It was just like literally every year, what courses am I doing? I'm going to do this course, do that course. So, the early 2010s, 2012, 2014, 2015, 2016, that was very much the vibe. I think that's dropped off a lot, which what that is creating is an opportunity for people that actually do want to have a bit more of an old school mentality of, learn, evolve, grow, to really create a gap between the level of value that they're providing as coaches compared to, Johnny Joe with abs that's on fucking TRT and everything else. He looks great, but, he can't actually replicate that with his clients.
Yes. What do you think is the most important trend that's emerging in the whole fitness space right now?
Longevity. The whole longevity thing. I think it's been led by Huberman, obviously.
Yes.
We see it just in interest from our students. It's like we came up in an industry where it's very aesthetic. It was all aesthetics. Strong, lean, sub 6% body fat, all that shit. Like, just worry about how the fuck you feel.
Yeah.
Worry about how you feel when you wake up in the day. And I think that's where the whole longevity, so like quality of life, life extension, mindset, mental fitness. I don't like the term mental health because it's a label.
Yeah.
Mental fitness to me
Mental
implies that you can train it up. I definitely think, longevity, wellness, that's definitely where it's going. And we're definitely pivoting a lot of our kind of curriculum and content to that, to expand what we're offering, because it's it's a massive one. If people aren't feeling good, they're not going to have the motivation to go fucking train anyway and look good.
Yeah.
So
you've helped both elite athletes and general pops, but you mentioned longevity. But what would you say would be the lasting results someone could acquire if they choose to be diligent with their daily habits?
Like from a physical perspective, a mental perspective, or
mental, physical, spiritual health?
Yeah, I mean, look, well, you kind of touched on it on, one of your initial quotes you mentioned from Hormozy. I'd actually use one of Joe Dispenza's quotes, like breaking the habit of being you.
Yeah.
He actually has a book called that. And I think like ultimately habits create, almost subconscious. It's almost like you're reprogramming your central nervous system, to be your bitch per se, right? To do as you say, both mentally, physically, and spiritually. So for me, the daily habits that I deploy, like I wouldn't be where I'm at in life commercially, as a husband, as a father, did I not do things like switch my phone off from a certain time of the day? Every weekend I will aim to, I'm not always successful, be lying if I said I would, aim to, like on the Saturday, we'll go out to breakfast, we'll go for a walk, I'll leave it here and I won't touch it to the night.
Yes.
Right? Like at that point, I've already done some of my work and I'm going to disconnect from this phone. Like even now, I'm like, oh, we've been here for an hour or whatever it is. I'm like, where's my phone? Right? We get so addicted to this shit. So I think like, habits, ingrained programs, right? And programs, depending on what programs you download into your system, are going to provide a net positive for you in your life.
Yeah. What do you think of this quote, mate? Richard Branson said once, the customers should never come first. Your staff should come first, because if you look after your staff, they'll look after the customers. And how do you think the corporate world could benefit from a better focus on employee wellness and fitness?
Oh, massively. Yeah. Look, and I think there's been a massive pivot towards that. Like, like with all of these different kind of, corporate wellness program, like we do stuff like, for example, with our sales agents, right? So like one of the businesses that we acquired, their company policy was that the sales agents need to be sitting at their table every day with the headsets on and not fucking move and do 100 calls a day. I'm like, well, sure, I get doing 100 calls a day, but fucking do some of them when you're doing steps.
Yeah.
You don't need to sit at your desk. If you want to like sit on your fucking bed, I don't care. Like I think in particular, like in remote working businesses, there's a lot more flexibility now. So like, I think, just being like, I think we're in the age of entrepreneurism and intrapreneurism, right? So there's those two concepts of like an entrepreneur is someone that creates something from scratch, and then an intrapreneur is someone that helps the entrepreneur build that. People don't want to be looked at these days as basically, oh, you're just a straight team member with no say, no vibe, no future. I think like, we definitely encourage an intrapreneur type of environment and clean health. And a lot of our team members have like side gigs or side hustles. I'm like, that's totally cool. I think as long as there's like real transparency, like transparency is one of our company values, like be transparent from the outset. As long as there's transparency and both the employer and the employee agree on something from the outset, there shouldn't be an issue. But I think that's where a lot of businesses are like, okay, yeah, like it's 9 to 5, but reality is 9 to 5, it's 8-7. And, you were told that you could go and train pre-workout, but pre 9 o'clock, but you're actually starting at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
So now you can't fit that in. We're very clear, like we're all the fuck in. This is not 9 to 5. If you want 9 to 5, do not work here. Like do not work here. But even though it's a pretty full on environment, like, the reality is you're 40, 50, whatever hours a week you work. We don't care if you do it from 1 a.m. on a Monday morning to fucking midnight on Tuesday. Well, like you do it in your time, as long as at the end of the week, you get the result.
Yes.
So I think it's just being, as an employee, not being scared of that. And like, oh, that might not sound regimented, but fuck, it works for us.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned once, mate. You said working smarter, not harder. But what would be some strategies you've implemented both to optimize your business and your personal life?
Yeah, so for me, like if I was to simplify, I start the day in the hyperbaric time chamber, powering up, right? From there, I'll go into kind of creative work that requires, I guess, the most focus and intellect to start the day. Because think about it, like if you're looking at an Excel document or you're creating a strategic brief or you're creating a program for a client or whatever it is, you don't want to be doing it at 6, 7 at night when you've been up 14 hours. So anything that requires skill, I try and do before lunchtime. And then anything that requires communication, I do after lunchtime, right? So I generally won't schedule any meetings until after 1 o'clock, after I've eaten lunch.
Yes.
Now, it wasn't always like that for me in my business, right? But the more the business has grown, the more I kind of segment my time. Like I have time patches where it's like me, family, creative work, communication work, and just kind of like literally regiment. A guy that does it really well, probably a bit too OCD for my liking, is Dan Martell. He's got a book called Buy Back Your Time. He talks about this concept extensively. A lot of it I agree with. I just have a bit of a different take on it for me.
Yeah. You've had an incredible impact on the fitness industry, mate, in this particular education. But what's next, mate, for Clean Health? What's the future and even your personal goals, mate?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, Clean Health, like our mission's pretty clear. It's like to certify and educate and positively impact, no less than 1 million fitness professionals by the year 2026 so they can serve their clients and monetize their passion. I think that end part is important, right? Because if you're not making money as a coach, you're not going to have longevity in the industry. You're not going to be in the industry for a decade, 15 years, 20 years or whatnot, right? So I think it's like making coaching great again and making it where, the trainers out there are actually helping people, but then they're getting paid what they're worth and what they're worthy of receiving. I think making a career out of it, I think that's the big mission for us. So like we're looking at an expansion through the group into like Pilates. We're looking at a few other we're currently organizing a few new partners, kind of like if I use the Marvel example, right? Like you got the Avengers, and like probably, I'm part of the original Avengers, myself and Lane Norton and Mark Carroll and all these different types of people that are partnered with the brand. But there's new blood coming through the industry right now. So like new Avengers.
Yeah.
And so I spoke to the team about it today. We're actually working with, we've got about 3 or 4 deals I'm looking at kind of signing off on over the next few weeks to kind of bring some really big up and coming names in the industry to the forefront, that are in their 20s and early 30s. Because a lot of the people I just mentioned, they're in their late 30s, early 40s, right? We've been around for 15, 20 years now. Time to bring in the new blood and kind of start to pass the reins over to the next generation, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to fucking serve the industry. So I think that's where it's at from Clean Health. But on an overarching thing, I think for my wife and I, our big thing is just to leave the planet in a better place than we started. So for me, it's about like, how do we expand, ultimately, if I was to look at it, like how do we expand consciousness? And so what is consciousness? Consciousness by its very definition is actually expansion, right? And so consciousness a lot of the time gets looked at as a spiritual kind of thing. And for me, it's just like, what? My companies, my brands or whatever we're doing, are they leaving the planet in a net positive? Are they positively impacting people? Do I go to sleep every night, actually feeling grateful and humbled by what I do? So we're looking at just expand that. We're obviously traveling for 12, 13 months around the world with the 7 kids. We've pulled them out of the school system, homeschooling now. I'm just excited. I think next year will be one of brand building to us, to be honest with you, because we're actually bringing a videographer and we're documenting the whole thing. Yeah. So every day we're going to be like releasing a reel or a YouTube. So I encourage people to follow it and jump in because like, again, I'm 42, turning 43. My wife's 38. We've got 7 kids. And if you told me 5 years ago that I would be spending a year traveling the world with my 7 kids and just blending family, business, fitness, and life, I would have been like, no. But like, I'm pumped to share it with people to show them, like, if you set the intention and the focus and match the habits of that intention every day, you can fucking do anything.
Yeah. I love what you said, mate. Make PT great again.
Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic
Yeah.
quote. And, you know, what really fucking annoys me, mate, is you see these PTs in the gym that aren't focusing on their client. They're not watching them. They're not paying attention to the detail. They're not, you know, it's very self-centered. It's all about them. And I think PTs nowadays have lost that. And me personally, I'm a very empathetic person because I've been through hardship. I've overcome adversity and obstacles.
And you have.
And I think also because I'm a martial artist. And I love that. Like, make PT great again. But what do you think PTs nowadays are lacking?
PTs are in a bit of an identity crisis. Like, I was talking to our team today about our beliefs. And here's my honest belief, is that personal trainers, nutritionists, fitness coaches, whatever you want to call them, are heroes. And so what I mean by that is a fitness professional is out there working with people to literally transform their lives.
Yeah.
Why aren't we acknowledging that? Why aren't we actually understanding that? Like, we talk about, you know, you remember with all the whole COVID schmozzle the other year, right? Like, frontline health workers. Frontline health workers are the fitness industry.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, we should be, you know, reminding, you know, and any PT fitness professional watching this is like, you're doing a fucking great thing. You're doing a great thing. It's not just about like, you are actually helping people. So I think understand that, you know what, it's not just cool to be in fitness. It's fairly noble if it's done properly.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong. There's the bullshit in the industry. We all know it, you know, and there's a lot of narcissism, a lot of that shit, there's a lot of BS, but there's also a lot of the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of us get into fitness because we live it, we breathe it, we see the positive impact that it has on our mental body, our physical body, our emotional body, our spiritual body, right? Yeah. So I think it's just remembering that it's like, fuck, we're in an industry of service. And I think if we can bring it back to the roots of that, of why we all got into it, I think that's how we make PT great again.
Yeah. What do you think of Joey Swole, mate?
Oh, look, I don't have too much of an opinion. I couldn't really comment on him because, you know what, the thing is this, right? I've been so caught up in my own bubble of the business that I've built and the community that we've built that I tend to have more tunnel vision on my own environment. I don't necessarily tune in to much else going on out there.
Yeah. I mean, he creates good gym culture.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what it's all about, mate. You touched on some interesting points. Making PT great again, good gym culture, and also you're providing a service to these people, you know, and I think for me too, mate, like I've been in the fitness industry and I think you just get such a feeling of satisfaction being able to change someone's life for the better. And so you're a family man. You know, not just a high-performance entrepreneur, but how do you approach teaching your kids about health, wellness, and building strong work ethic?
Look, I mean, this is something that Lauren and I, you know, we spend a lot of time on, you know, because I think at the end of the day, as parents, like, your children's values, their beliefs, their habits and all that are based off what they see.
Yes.
Right? It's based off what they see. It's based off what they feel. So we definitely do struggle at times, I think, between the amount of time of work that we put into what we're doing and then also being present with our children. But one thing I've learned is that, you know, obviously there's different seasons of a child's life, right? There's the ages under, you know, between 1 and 3, there's 3 to 7, there's 7 to 11, there's 11 to 15, there's 15 to 21, and there's 21 to 30 and stuff like that. And at each season of life, you go from being the teacher, the provider, to the mentor and stuff like that. One thing that we've realized is that, you know, for a lot of parents out there that are working and trying to do big things, they struggle with the concept of how much time. And one thing we've realized is, like, kids don't actually need, like, because they're human beings exploring their own journey, especially as they come into, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and keep going. Like, they don't need you to be there with them all day, every day. But what they do need from you at that point in life is that when you are with them, you're fucking present.
Yes.
you're present, you're connected. I read an article the other day that under the age of, I think it was under the age of 7 or something like that, that children get one of the highest releases of oxytocin, which is like, the feel-good neurochemical stuff like that, from their fathers when the fathers physically play with them. And so, you might have seen me with my daughter before. I was kind of holding them back, and like I make it an effort every day to physically touch and play with my kids. Gosh, that could sound really fucking bad what I just said then. But to we call it in our house huggle. It's huggle time. It's not a cuddle, it's a huggle.
Yeah.
To play with them, to be with them, to respond to them. And that's a big part. I think it's like you've just got to spend quality time with them every day. And also I think give them, one thing I've had to learn, especially from our upbringing, is like, especially when they're emotionally venting, is just to let them vent.
Yeah.
Especially when they're young, and then as they get older, because look, we've got the age of between kind of 2 to 17 right now, right? We've got the 17-year-old that's, got his girlfriend, they're sleeping over in the bedroom behind us. And then we've got our 2-year-old that's still breastfeeding.
Yeah.
So it's like we go through such a big kind of spectrum of age, but I think the main thing is just quality time. It's not time, it's quality time. And in that quality time, they need to feel heard, they need to feel loved, and ultimately they need to feel safe.
Yeah.
They need to feel safe. And how do they feel safe? Like, fuck, I can be a pretty like intense dude. Like there's been moments when I've blown up and raised my voice and stuff like that, like I'm human. But it's catching yourself.
Yes.
It's catching yourself when this shit happens. And it's also when you do fuck up, and every single parent will fuck up and will do something wrong to their kids.
Yeah.
Right? There's actually one of the reasons why we've taken them out of the school system, because I'm like, you know what? I would rather be the one responsible for fucking my kids up than some teacher at school that doesn't know my kids.
Yeah.
Right? That was actually a big decision maker for us. But it's like, when you do fuck up, and you will fuck up, wear it, acknowledge it, communicate. My wife does it beautifully with the kids, where she'll get down, mums are the best at this. I think dads, we can learn from mums. It's like, just, especially when they're kind of under 10, like, or even under 7, like talk to them like they're an adult, like sit down, get to them on their level, talk to them, like give them the respect. They're not just kids. Don't just shut up. Just shut up. Just shut up. Shut up. No, scream.
Yeah.
If you want to scream and let it out, let it out. Because actually, a lot of the time, if your children are screaming and letting it out, it's because they're comfortable enough, they feel safe enough to do that.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like I remember when I was growing up, I'd be scared I'm going to get smacked or fucking some shit like that. So it's like, I think, like just letting them get that out of their system whilst they're in that place and the fucking noise is going on and stuff like that, speaking with them, you've got to be the grounded one.
Yeah.
I spoke, you know what ultimately it is? With your children, you have to be the commander-in-chief, cool, calm and collected, and the leader in the shitstorm.
Yeah. There's no right or wrong answer. Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to parenting, but there's always better ways to go about it. And I think you nailed it, mate. Being present, just being in, these important developmental stages of children's lives is just being present too. And I definitely reflect on that, mate, just being present in the moment. And what would be some advice to aspiring entrepreneurs that are sort of interested in the fitness industry, but to set themselves up for long-term success, but understanding there are going to be some pitfalls? What would be some advice that you could give them?
When you start out, just go all the fuck in on one thing. And it sounds like cliche, said before, but ultimately it's so true. Like when you start out, you just need to go all in on one thing. And if that thing works, great. If it fails, great. Like failing to fail is failing.
Yes.
I've failed. I've made millions. I've lost millions. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like go all in on one thing. And then also I think like you need to, like, the big thing that stops, and I've seen it over the last, it's in any industry, is like the ego, right? And like sometimes people chastise the ego and say it's a bad thing. No, the ego is a good thing. You bring it out, you put it on your back. Let's go, buddy. Let's fucking go, right? But then there's also a time to put it back in your pocket.
Yeah.
And that's in business. That's in your relationship. That's with your friendships. That's with everything. So I think, yeah.
You know what, mate? I know you can snatch deadlift 200 kilos off a deficit. I know you can do that, mate.
I probably still can.
Yeah, but you should try Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
You've been chipping away at me.
Mate, you should get into it because you have to drop your ego.
Yeah.
No ego. You're going to get your ass handed to you by someone that's smaller than you and weaker than you.
Yeah.
And I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is fantastic, mate, because it crosses over into so many other activities. And I've been fighting since I was 6. Been doing this for over 30 years. And I can honestly say, mate, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is just such a remarkable art, but also getting kids involved in it, mate. It teaches them a lot about themselves, transfers over into rugby and things like that. But yeah, you can't have an ego, mate, in Jiu-Jitsu. You have to.
James Smith, him and I were speaking about it the other week. He loves it. He's like, you got to do it, Daine. You got to do it. Here's why. Like he loves it. It's completely transformed his life. So you're the second person. You have told me this before. You're the second person in the last few weeks to say you've got to do it. So, I do have to find something to do when I'm traveling overseas. So maybe I just go be a BJJ kind of a connoisseur at all the different clubs around the world when we're traveling.
Yeah,
girlies.
Yeah. No, definitely, mate. You should give it a go. Mark Twain once said, the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. And I think we're on this planet to give, to contribute, to become better, to grow. But I wrote a post on Instagram a while ago. I'm going to read this out to you, mate. I said, in the end, we all become memories and stories. Our lives are made up of countless moments that shape who we are and how we are remembered. When we leave this world, what remains are the memories we've created and the stories that are shared about us. It is in these memories and stories that our legacy lives on. Whether it's through acts of kindness, accomplishments, or the relationships we build, our legacy is the mark we leave on the world. People will remember you not for what you have achieved, but for the way you made them feel. It is the impact you had on others that resonates long after you are gone. By living a life filled with compassion, empathy, and love, you can leave a legacy that touches hearts and inspires others to do the same.
It's a beautiful quote.
Yeah. I actually wrote that, mate.
Oh, you wrote it?
I wrote that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I wrote that.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. Daine, what would you like people to remember you for?
Just as someone that I think showed people what is possible.
Yeah.
Ultimately. And I think when you show people what's possible, it gives them hope. And we come back to frequency. When you feel the thought or the feeling of hope, how do you feel? You feel fucking happy.
Yeah.
You feel excited. You feel in awe for life. And I think that's ultimately like, fuck, man. Like you were talking before about being present. And as you said that, I stopped myself to actually just feel into this moment, to be present in this moment. It's very easy to just sit here and fucking talk, right? But actually being present in the moment. So I think for me, it's just to show what's possible. And I think like, motivate, inspire in my pocket of the globe in whatever it is that I do, on a home front, on a community front, on a industry front. Like, yeah, that's why I'm here, man.
Yeah. Love that, mate. Daine, it's been an honor, mate, to sit down with you. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day.
Yeah.
But you're on all the socials, mate. You're on Instagram.
Yeah, just look, Instagram at Daine McDonald. I think I've got one on YouTube. Not doing anything really on YouTube, but like both the social accounts are going to start to get cranking, so it's good timing. It's D-Day overseas in about 22 days, and then the 13-month fucking Truman Show begins.
Yeah, mate. So where are you going next year, mate? We're
literally Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, China, Tibet, India, Dubai, the States, Australia, back to Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, then off to Africa. Then we'll do like all of Europe, UK. I'll do my 43rd birthday in a castle in Scotland in the Highlands. We're going to stay there for a few weeks and just ground myself in our fucking ancestry. Never been there. I'm fucking kilts and all.
Yeah.
And then back to the States. From there we'll go to South America. I want to go to some of the sacred sites like Peru and things like that. New Year's Eve in Times Square in New York, and then Antarctica, New Zealand, and home.
You'll have to let me know about that, mate. I've always been interested and fixated on our bloodline and how far back it goes. I've always been interested to see where we actually came from.
I've actually, this side note, I've got stuff dating back to the late 1700s.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so our ancestor would be like great granddad was I've actually got it. We just took it down recently because we're packing up. He's a doctor, who was also an entrepreneur.
Yeah, right. Yeah, wow. Runs in the family, mate.
Yeah, definitely, man. Well, thanks for the time, brother.
Thank you, mate.
All right. Appreciate it, man.